You're listening to Big World Network.
Bloodshot Buck, Season 2, Episode 6. Written by W.H. Wood and Mitch K. Allan. Read by Willow Wood. Just as Ava finished twisting her long hair into a bun, a clattering, buzzing sound came from one of the lockers at the back of their room. Michael and James paused in the doorway. "What the hell is that?" asked Michael. As the one closest to the lockers, Ava noticed that the clamour was specifically coming from hers. "Quick," said James, "we gotta go." Ava tugged it open and located her flex phone as it flashed and vibrated on the top shelf. She took it down and stared at the screen. One new email. Had someone on Quarter cracked her flex? She didn't receive emails anymore. None of them did. Not looking away from the screen, Ava turned back to James and Michael. "What is it?" James asked. He crossed the room and Ava pinched her fingers across the flex screen, then flicked upwards. A pale beam of light cast a holographic image above the surface of the screen. James stared at the email notification. "Well, that's pretty weird. It must be a mistake." Michael snorted, pulling at the jumpsuit wrapped tight around his legs. "Whatever. Come on, Ava, open it." She hid a smirk, noticing that the boys had dropped use of her surname lately, which was A-OK with her. Buck wasn't exactly the nicest sound in the back of the mouth, if she did say so herself. Ava pinched her fingers across the screen again, and the projection disappeared. She opened the email. It dated back almost 6 months ago, a few weeks after she'd boarded a transport shuttle and set off for the synth quarter. The sender address displayed her father's name. Ava had no idea how the Kudos link dealt with delayed incoming messages, but somehow this email had managed to make its way from Earth to the asteroid belt. God, Catharian tech was awesome. "What does it give me a chance?" she cried, cutting James off. "After the preliminary, we're sorry to trouble you with this, but we thought you should know." Every word after made her stiffen with anxiety. James took hold of her arm and gave a little shake. "What is it?" Ava swallowed and licked her lips. "My sister. She's run off. She just packed up her bags, left a note. I mean, it's not like she's a kid anymore. She's older than I am, but she got into trouble before I left, and Dad thinks she's hopped it off with her boyfriend." "Is he not very nice?" asked Michael, folding his arms. "No, he's lovely," Ava said. "It's just, he's a Catharian, which isn't the problem. I mean, he's very pro-Cathar rights, and Julia is all over that shit. She'll do the good fight and blah 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 wherever and whatever. He's nice, but he's not very safe. Am I making any sense?" Broadening his shoulders, James shared a look with Michael. "At least he's a nice guy," Michael offered. Putting on a comforting smile, James slipped Ava's flex out of her fingers and put it back on the locker shelf. He placed a hand on her back and eased her forward a few steps. "There's nothing you can do about it," he said softly. "But if she's anything like you, I'm sure she can handle things." "She's twice as mad," Ava admitted. "If there's anything I'll bet you can't handle, it's my bloody sister." James nodded his head to the side, as if considering his luck. "Good thing I'll never meet her then. I mean, you know what I mean." He pressed a warm hand to the back of Ava's head. "Come on, O'Hara's gonna make us paint bricks." Engineer Darcy strapped James into his mech suit and pumped it full of synthetic skin jelly. Ava watched James shiver, his jaw stretching as he pulled a face. The techie currently fastening armor onto Ava's torso blocked her view as James said, "Cool, it's cold today." "I'm sure a fine soldier like you will heat it up in no time," Darcy replied. "Cheeky." Beside her, Michael tapped Ava's arm to get her attention. "I think Darcy's starting to grow on me," he muttered. Ava stifled a laugh. 20 minutes later, they were packed into a shuttle and dropped off at Training Ground 4. Like last time, the area had unmodified gravity, and Ava practiced throwing punches as they waited for further instruction. TG-4's terrain had uneven, jagged trenches. Not deep, but defendable. They'd been warned not to walk over any area their helmets VI displayed in red, as the ice was liable to crack over a trench of unknowable depths.
"Buck, don't waste your energy,"
said their instructor, a man they'd been directed by a couple of times now. Hara had bailed on them as she'd had other duties come up. Ava stopped experimenting with the effort needed to hit things in weak gravity and dropped down onto the sloped trench they were in. She waved up at the shuttle circling overhead where their instructor hung out the door.
"What a time to feel nauseous,"
Michael groaned beside her. James twisted in his mech suit. The electrical whirring from its joints echoed from inside his helmet and into theirs.
"What's your temp?"
he asked.
"It's all right for now. I just really want to throw up breakfast, you know? Dizzy, too." "You should focus on something else,"
said Ava.
"Like, pay attention,"
their instructor cut across.
"The other team is inbound. You must defend your position for 30 minutes. Gibbon? Wait."
Michael raised his middle finger to the shuttle.
"It's Gibson, but thanks. I'll be all right. Flip me off again and I'll flip you into the next life."
Michael grumbled something that got lost in the tinny quality of their microphones.
"I'm just saying, Gibbon,"
continued their instructor.
"if you vomit inside your helmet, it'll be one of the worst experiences of your life. All right, get your asses in gear."
James crouched, ready to jump, and Ava moved further down the trench, ready to run past Michael's barrier once he eventually set it up, and out into the fray. She stroked the button set into her bracer on the back of her left wrist, a feature designed just for her combat techniques. A flicker of black armor appeared in the distance.
"Enemy spotted, 11 o'clock,
she said. Michael swung his generator pack from his shoulders and set it on the floor of the trench. The hefty steel box split apart at his touch, and he began arranging it with deft hands. He withdrew a long cylindrical rod from the center, clicking wires into place at its base. Then Michael took a power cell from his belt and slotted it into the cylindrical tube. With a final twist and flick, the generator powered up. He withdrew copper wire from its base and crawled to the top of the trench, where he laid it down across the edge in a long line. Michael moved so quick and with such little hesitation that within a minute he went back to the generator, hit a switch, and an orange barrier burst into life. The copper wire glowed red-hot, projecting an impenetrable synthetic barrier 4 feet into the air. Ice sizzled beneath it.
"Amazing,"
said James. Michael gave a little breathless cheer.
"Now I just need to stop shaking."
He drew the assault rifle clipped to his lower back and hunkered in front of the barrier.
"Guys, I'm really dizzy,"
he whispered.
"Take a breather,"
said Ava.
"We can protect you."
He didn't even have a quip comeback other than an unsettled groan.
"Ava,"
said James.
"Get out there now and find an advantageous position to take them by surprise. You'll only have one chance."
She nodded.
"Right, got it."
Leaping out of cover, Ava sprinted across the icy field, her heavy boots giving her weight and momentum. The undulating ground was mapped out by her helmet's VI, and she wove a path to a trench that flanked the enemy team's left side. From her new position, she saw 3 of them bursting in and out of cover, sprinting through the trench network and out again over the hills. Ava removed the hand cannon strapped to her thigh.
How did your sister end up dating a Cathar?
Asked Michael.
What?
She shifted position, trying not to let a lack of concentration worsen her sore eyesight.
Right now? Trying to distract myself. Oh, feeling vomtastic, are you, mate? Not helping.
She chuckled.
Give me a minute. Hold it in for now.
An enemy marine, charging on the outer flank, closest to Ava, was weaving a predictable path. Setting off again, Ava ran hunched over through the trenches, preparing to cut him off. Excitement and nerves thumped inside her chest. Breath echoed around her helmet.
What's your status?
Asked James.
VI, send coordinates to Sterling.
She said by way of reply.
Excellent. I'll draw the others away. Good luck. Thanks. You too.
Ava had lost visual on her target, and all sound outside of her helmet was muffled, drowned out anyway by the sound of her own breathing. She had to time it perfectly. If her judgment was correct, the enemy should be charging around the next bend any minute now. Wait. She'd only have a 10-second advantage. Her finger hovered over the button on the back of her wrist.
So, your sister. Shut up.
A glimpse of black armor over the top of the next trench. Got him. Ava hit the button and her titanium armor crackled bright blue, then vanished. Invisible. The VI in her suit gave her chameleon skin, taking photos 3,000 times a second to camouflage her in any terrain. The only thing to give her away was the odd shimmer of blue. A timer started counting down on her screen. She charged forward, around the bend, and careened into the enemy marine. He flailed in her steel grip, stunned by the invisible hit. Her cloak wore off just as she slammed him into the side of the trench, but she was already squeezing the trigger on her hand cannon. She shot 6 times into his side, and a red light illuminated on his helmet. He was staring at her with wide eyes, and then he punched the wall beneath his fist. They couldn't talk, and Ava didn't have time to hang around.
Sorry, mate,
she thought, sorry he couldn't see her grinning beneath the lower half of her helmet.
One of them's down,
she told the others. Michael gave a lame cheer. Calming a little, the defeated Marine straightened up and gave her a conceding bow. She gave him the thumbs up and set off again.
Did you read the news this morning?
Came Michael's voice. Ava sighed and shook her head.
Yeah, I did. Just one more minute. Shirley, what's going on? VI, send coordinates to Buck.
James replied.
I've taken some fire, but my meter is still at 89%. 2 enemies down. Loop back towards Gibbon and resupply your power cells. Roger that. Fine. Call me Gibbon,
snapped Michael.
See if I care.
Ava ejected the cell that powered her cloaking device from her lower back and swapped it out with her second spare. The energy to cloak her armor required so much juice, it drained an entire cell in one 10-second burst.
So, the news,
Ava said, following the dots on her virtual map. Michael's voice perked up at once.
I'm talking about the terrorist attack on Mars yesterday. They're getting frequent, huh? It specifically targeted a Justicate base this time. Can you believe the balls on those guys? Balls of crazy,
she replied.
Do they know who did it? They're saying the Blood Ascension group, whatever they want, but no one really knows.
James's heavy breath turned to laboured grunts in Ava's ear. She checked the skyline to see if he was jumping.
Don't they want the right to have blood powers outside of the army?
James growled.
Sounds about right,
Ava said.
Actually, Gibbon, that's kinda how my sister met her boyfriend. You want to elaborate on that real fast?
Michael replied. She laughed.
They met at the Sydney trade protest of 2082. They've been together 8 years,
cried James.
Damn, maybe they just eloped.
An unexpected pang of loss filled Ava as she imagined her sister growing up, having a family, getting an embassy job. Michael interrupted her miserable feelings.
So your sister digs crazies, huh? All right. I don't think the trade protest was that nutso. Prob's the most reasonable protest they ever went on,
she said, just as the glowing orange barrier in front of their trench came into view. She'd have to break out of cover and sprint the last 20 meters.
What was that one about? They were against the blood for land deal. If the Catharians gave us blood donations and taught us how to weaponize it,
Ava broke out of cover.
Then they could colonize sections of Mars. Protesters like my sister believe.
A heavy force slammed into her side, winding her like a punch to the chest. It hit so hard she was knocked off her feet, and she sailed through the air much farther than she would have done in normal gravity. Amidst the falling and spinning, someone else's helmet appeared next to hers as their cloaking device wore off.
Ava!
Cried Michael, presumably watching from behind the barrier. Ava and her assailant hit the ground in a spray of ice and broke apart. Ava kicked to get away. Without her boots beneath her, dragging herself backwards was like flailing her arms through water. Ava's attacker aimed her gun. Kicking again, swinging with all her might, Ava knocked the woman's weapon off over the hillside. Yes! Sitting up properly, Ava aimed her hand cannon. Anger flashed in the woman's eyes, and she launched forward. Ava got in one shot before a wrestling match for her gun began. Their moves were sluggish and desperate.
Shit! I can't get a shot!
Cried Michael.
Second team inbound,
came their instructor's voice.
Just hold position!
Ava yelled.
James, Ava needs backup. I'll hold your flank. I can't,
James replied.
Hold on, Ava. I'll be with you. Just hold on. I'm fine!
But just as Ava said this, her body quivering with the strength needed to fend the other woman off, she received a heavy blow to the head. Helmet or not, the concentrated blow sent her head spinning. Without aim, Ava swung her elbow up and smacked her assailant in the jaw with the butt of her elbow guard. In a blur of desperate, dizzy punches, Ava got to her feet again and backed away. Too far. The ice crumbled underfoot. Yelping, she slipped down the other side of the hill, farther from Michael's barrier. Twisting and flailing, she saw she was dropping straight towards a field of ice, her VI painted red. Ice that could shatter over unknown depths. She scrabbled to claw into the hillside, but her fingers grazed over the tough surface. Ava slammed into the ground and rolled out onto the field. Groaning, aching, cracking sounds echoed loud enough for her to hear, and she froze on her stomach. Held her breath.
Shit! Buck's on the red ice!
Cried their instructor.
Sterling, she's your priority. This isn't a test. On my way.
Ava looked up at the top of the hill and saw the woman she'd been scrapping with, staring over the edge. She gave a cocky wave and then ran off.
Bitch!
Ava gasped. Was winning so important? They weren't real enemies.
Get her, Gibbon. Right.
Blood thumped against Ava's skull and tingled into her face with a feverish heat. The ice moaned again, and her panic turned to nausea. She thought about joking with Michael, but decided he didn't need reminding of vomit inside helmets.
Stand down,
said their instructor.
We have a serious issue here. Exercise is on hold. No, I don't care about realistic odds. Our synth is in real danger, and we don't tolerate that. Stand down. That takes a load off me,
said Michael, feebly. Ava felt a tremor beneath her gloves.
Ava, I'm here. Don't worry.
She looked around and saw James standing on the edge of the red field. If he stepped out onto the ice in that massive suit, it would break for sure. With an exasperated sigh, their instructor said,
You're the first synth to land on a red field in 4 years. Congrats, Buck. All right, don't panic. Yeah, thanks,
Ava replied.
Shirley, what's the plan?
James shrugged his massive arms.
I don't know.
He sounded desperate.
There might be a split second where the ice doesn't break. If you can manage to stand up. Yes?
She prompted, too afraid to move.
Then maybe I can jump next to you, scoop you up, jump off again? Sounds wonderful.
Ava dropped her head and rested her visor against the ice.
I'm sorry, I don't know. It's not your fault. I fell on the bloody ice. We have to try it,
said their instructor.
By the time we get a shuttle out here with a harness, you'll be on your last bit of oxygen. And if we lower this shuttle to your position, the pressure might break the ice.
With that cleared up, it seemed like she had little other choice. Slowing her breathing right down, Ava assessed her options for getting onto her feet.
It's less likely to crack if my weight is spread out, right?
She said.
So I've just got to make sure I don't put too much pressure on one point.
Ava cringed and swallowed hard. She tried planting her hands as if about to do press-ups, but the second she lifted herself up, a wicked cracking noise travelled underneath her. She lowered back onto her front.
No, not that.
Staying calm was paramount.
If I do stand up,
Ava said,
you're going to have a few seconds window to get me, aren't you?
James took an intake of air.
Yeah, you can do it,
she whispered, more for herself. Deep breath in, slow breath out. This time Ava rolled onto her side and carefully pulled one leg in, as if lying in the recovery position. She took a moment to build up her courage. With one push, rolling her weight to avoid one pressure point, Ava managed to sit up. She sat with her back to James now, eyes fixed on the stars, and ignoring the jolt she definitely felt pass underneath her.
There's no easy way to do this,
she breathed.
I'll have to jump. You ready? On your mark,
James replied. She heard a quick stream of curses from Michael as she counted down.
Go!
Ava leapt up and a small fissure cut into the ice beneath her. She wobbled, the ground buckling inwards, black shadows appearing as the ice splintered underfoot.
James!
The ice erupted as he landed behind her, falling, surrounded by rocks of ice. A metal arm wrapped around her middle. With a grunt from James, they shot up into the sky, and Ava's legs dangled uselessly beneath her, her body pinned in his arm like a stunned creature. She gripped his bracer as her stomach gave an unpleasant swoop at the sight of Michael's orange barrier far below. The ice field crumbled inwards to reveal a dark, black pit. James started falling back down, away from the hole, and for a second, Ava almost blacked out. His grasshopper boots took no damage as they landed, and James let Ava slide to the ground.
You all right?
James asked, reaching out to steady her. Ava nodded and waved him away.
I think I'll go join Von Boy back at the base. For God's sake,
muttered Michael.
Lucky shit. Fantastic!
Yelled their instructor, making James and Ava wince.
Resume exercise. Yeah, you heard me. Go, go, go!
James sprinted off and Ava wove a blurred path back to Michael. She hunkered down beside him and slotted her drained power cell from earlier into the generator.
So, intergalactic politics,
she said.
Where were we?
Michael laughed and shoved her shoulder. 15 minutes later, after a few close calls, Ava, Michael and James headed back to the main synth quarter, victorious.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.